Recording in progress.
All right. What's going on, everybody? This is Dana Polk Jr., Master Executive 8. And excuse the noise in the background. If you do hear it. I don't think you can, but it's a train um that runs through my backyard. But anyway, uh man, so today I just want to share man, something that just impacted my life immediately. Immediately. And hold on, let me see if I can get sorry guys. More more light here. Yeah, so you guys can see me. I'm working on getting the whole kind of setup thing going here so I can get some better quality content. So forgive me. But anyway, let me just get right into this. So that the information that I'm sharing today is basically like I said, it was something that uh impacted my life immediately, and it's not so much the story, um but it's more about the principle from the story that um is definitely, I think, just as much as it helped me, it can help you guys on your journey, is this idea of um man, this thing does not want to come on for me. Is the idea of rest, right? So I'm pretty sure most are familiar with the story of creation, the biblical story of creation, the 7 days, basically how God created the earth, and how he rested on the seventh day, right? So like I said, that I don't really want to get too much uh and I'll definitely do a show later on a more in-depth story on oh gosh, forgive me y'all, on the creation account and what I'm talking about. But this is just because I just kind of wanted to get some content out today. This is just what I've learned. Something that I actually learned in the genealogy course that I'm in. I'll share that with you guys. I'll put it in the description uh box, the course that I'm in. But this idea that was shared immediately affected my life. Like literally immediately. I immediately changed my perspective and the way I look at things, right? So it's the idea of rest, right? So most rest is seen in many different ways, many different perceptions of rest from um some people, recognize Saturday as the day of rest, some people recognize Sunday as the day of rest, and is recognized as a day where pretty much you rest, you don't do anything, you know what I'm saying? As far as work, right? Some people they use time frames, you know, some people like, so as many different ways it's done. And I'm not here to tell anybody that their way is right or wrong. But what I'm want to focus on is the idea of rest and a new a new way of seeing rest, right? So one way of rest you can see in that way of um physically resting, mentally resting, spiritually resting, meaning not doing anything as far as work, which is good. I think we all should um embrace that idea of rest and to take time um from our creation, intentional time to rest, to literally not do anything. You know what I'm saying? And that's not being lazy. You know what I'm saying? Especially if it's intentional. You know what I'm saying? Like we know the difference between when we're resting and when we're being lazy. Like we all know ourselves that much to know that, right? So the idea that I want to focus on though is this new way of looking at rest, right? So looking at the creation story, you can see that everything that God created was, so let me just share the overall idea of rest, right? Basically, when you're resting from the creation that you've created, the rest is basically a contentment. It's a it's knowing that the creations that you made are able to sustain themselves with little to no overhead. That is a deeper sense of rest in my opinion, because just think about something that requires a lot of over overseeing. I'm sorry, not overhead, overseeing. Just think about something that requires a lot of overseeing. Um, it's going to be hard for you to rest knowing that that thing that you created is it can't sustain itself. It can't grow to maturity on its own. Um, whether you planted that seed on non-fertile ground, um, whether you didn't nurture the seed, whether sometimes it's just the seed itself. Sometimes you can do all that you can, but this seed is just rebellious and doesn't want to listen. Now that's out of your hand. There's nothing you can do about that. But this idea of rest, meaning that I know that the seeds that I planted can at some point will be self-sustaining, meaning they will mature on their own, and over time they will need less and less for me to oversee them, because I made sure what this does, changing your mind state about being able to rest from your creations, is it makes you a more intentional creator. You'll go more into things thinking, how can I build this thing on a solid foundation in a way, in good soil, in a way so that later on it will mature and require less overseeing, because then I can truly rest knowing that I've planted a seed that will, and I've nurtured that seed and that plant to be able to sustain itself to maturity. Then I can truly rest because I know that what I've built is able to sustain itself. If I'm constantly have on my mind, um, man, uh, this 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 seed is dying. I needed to stand. Like if I constantly have to provide overseeing to something that I've created, in a way to where it's not effective, in a way to where it's not going to mature, in a way to where um it's going to require so much overseeing that I can't rest, then um that rest never comes. Even so, let's refer back to the creation story itself, right? So, and like I said, you can go read the story yourself. Even me, I didn't necessarily go read the story again. I do have a Christian background. Like, I was brought up as a Baptist, Christian Baptist. So I'm familiar with the story. Although off top, I don't just know every single nuance of the story. But the one thing I do know is this idea of when God rested on that seventh day, everything was created to sustain itself. The animals that were made um in their own kind, meaning they are able to reproduce and sustain themselves. The earth was created in a way to where it can sustain itself. Man was created in a way to where it can reproduce and multiply and sustain itself. Everything was created to sustain itself. The moon, the sun was created to to sustain itself, to help. The basically whole system was created to sustain itself to the point to where this system now requires very little overseeing, because even when you think about the part where Adam is placed in the garden, it literally says that Adam has everything that he needs to not only do his job, which is to oversee the garden. So you've even appointed managers to your creation to manage. So that's less overseeing you do, because you don't necessarily have to oversee the whole creation. You just have to oversee Adam. You know what I'm saying? So when Adam was placed in the garden, everything that Adam needed was in the garden. Um, Even the garden itself, it all the plants were watered by the springs which came up out of the ground. You know, um, so just all that to say is that the rest. Hold on, real quick.
Recording in
All that to
progress.
say is that this idea of rest can be looked at in a way to where you'll be more mindful of the things that you create, and then you'll be more mindful of the things that you've already created, and you'll be in a mind state of, how can I make sure that these things are able to grow to maturity and sustain themselves without me always having to oversee them, you know? And after hearing this, um I immediately started applying it to my life. I immediately started to, even if you just look at something as your child, I immediately started thinking, am I setting my son up to be able to sustain himself to maturity without, because I'm not always going to be able to oversee this. So am I doing it in a such a way to where he can mature on his own with very little overseeing, you know? So, am I providing the environment? Am I providing the nourishment? You know, just like a farmer would take care of his crops. You know, is he checking the stars to make sure it's a good time to plant? You know, is he making sure the ground is tilled? I'm not a farmer. I don't know the whole process of gardening, but so like all of this is just based on what I know.
Recording in
Am
progress.
I making sure that he's able to sustain himself? So, and then basically applying that idea of creation to everything that I do, making sure that every seed I plant is able to sustain itself. Now, am I saying that this is going to be perfect? No.
Recording
Am
in
I saying
progress.
things are going to be perfect? Am I saying that I'm not going to make any mistakes? Am I saying that every single seed that I plant is going to grow to maturity? No. But this idea is now making me a more responsible farmer, meaning that I'm going to be planting my seeds with more intention, be planting my seeds the idea of being able, is this going to be able to sustain itself with little overseeing? Am I actually going to be able to rest? Am I actually am I content? Am I content? And that's not even necessarily a thing to where it's like, okay, after I do this, then I'm going to be content. It's kind of living in that state of contentment, knowing that the things that I plant will be able to sustain themselves and and grow to maturity. So that's all I wanted to share with you guys today is this new perspective on rest. And I hope that you can take this and apply it to your life like I did and get immediate results. All right, guys. I'll talk to y'all later.